Good morning. Today is Sunday, April 27, 2025. This is a message that I need to hear, and I'm sharing it aloud in case you find some benefit and value in it as well. You know, the Sefer Torah, the Torah scroll itself, does not have any vowels or punctuation. In the printed Chumash, the printed Bible, of course, there's vowels, punctuation, but in the Torah scroll itself, there's none of that. There are 5 empty lines of space between one book and the next. It's like between the book of Exodus and the book of Vayikra. There are 5 empty lines. And then, basically, the text is just complete, one column after the other, except for spaces. And there are 2 kinds of spaces in the Torah. One is a space where the writing goes to the middle of the line, and then there's a space of, let's say, about the length of, 2 or 3 words, and the line continues. You could compare that to the space at the end of a paragraph. And then there's a space where the writing on the line goes, let's say, halfway, and it continues on the next line. The entire rest of the line is open. Now, the first one is called stuma, which means closed, so it's a space, but there's writing on either side on the same line. That's called stuma, closed. And the other is called psucha, open, where the space is open until the end of the line, and the writing resumes on the next line. That's called psucha. In many printed chumashim in the Hebrew text, you will see the letter pei, which stands for psucha, and the letter samach, which stands for the letter stuma, to indicate that this is one of those spaces. There is no consistency in how long each one of these is, meaning how much writing is in between them. Sometimes you'll have a long column, maybe even 2 columns with no spaces in between. And sometimes you'll have where there are many, many spaces. It's very choppy. It's all chopped up. What are these spaces for? Rashi explains, Litein revach leMoshe lihizbonein bein parsha leparsha. God was speaking to Moshe at Mount Sinai and teaching Moshe the Torah. And every once in a while, at the end of an idea, let's say, just to use the English words, it's not exactly parallel, but to use the English words, at the end of a paragraph or at the end of a chapter, God gave Moshe a moment to absorb it. Litein revach, a moment of space for Moshe to let it sink in what God was saying to Moshe. One could not even imagine what it's like to hear God teaching Moshe for the first time the words of the Torah. Lizbonein, to think about what it means. Because Moshe is not only memorizing this, he is trying to understand it as best as he can. So we have these spaces in the Torah, which are indications that God gave space to Moshe to let the words sink in so that he could think it through to understand it on his own. Litein revach leMoshe lizbonein bein parsha leparsha, to give space for Moshe to think about letting the words sink in between one portion and another, ubein inyan le'inyan, and between one subject and another subject. And Rashi goes on to comment, if it's necessary that Moshe, the greatest of all, needed time to let things sink in, to be able to think about what something means, and he was learning from the greatest teacher in the world, from God himself, so much more so, a normal person who is studying from another normal person, they have to leave time to let the words sink in, to be able to understand. There's got to be some reflection that goes on at the same time. You can't just speak all the time. You have to let it sink in. It's an amazing phrase, revach lihisbonein, space to reflect, room to reflect. You have to take time out. You have to contemplate. You have to be able to stop and to let something sink in order to be able to internalize the message. There's an amazing effort. It started in Israel a few years ago. It's called Mahapechat HaKeshev, the listening revolution, or the revolution of listening. And it was an effort to try to get people to listen, to think before they speak, to let the words sink in. Here's a quote. Imagine pressing a button and waiting for an elevator to come, or preparing a cup of coffee and waiting for the water to boil, or sitting in a restaurant and waiting for a friend who's a few minutes late. In the not-too-distant past, our day was full of moments like these, moments in which we were solely in our thoughts and feelings. They were moments between moments. But today, let's admit it, moments between moments are automatically filled as we open our cell phones and scroll without purpose. Even if we checked our phone a second earlier, we check again, as the need to do so immediately returns. The main thing is not to be inactive, not to be bored or unproductive, not to be alone. And so this effort suggests that we need to try to return to those moments. We need to try to seek out those moments between moments and allow ourselves to experience them to the fullest. If I'm waiting for the elevator and I'm speaking to myself, because I know I'm the worst offender of this, if I'm waiting for the elevator, or I'm waiting for a train, or I'm waiting for someone to come, even if it's just for a few minutes, I could just sit quietly and maybe think about the last thing that I read, or maybe think about the next thing I'm going to do, instead of obsessively going from one thing to the other. Just to be present in the moment. It's an important thing, I confess, for me, it's a real fault to take a moment to think about what I've just read or seen or done, and not just to go to the next post and the next email and the next message. There's a thing I've learned about social media. There are people, especially younger people, that let's say they want to listen to a podcast. They want to listen to a YouTube video. Let's say, hopefully, maybe they want to listen to this YouTube video. But they have it set so they can listen to it at double speed. Because at double speed, you get the message, but it takes half the time. So let me just say, I'm glad if they listen, and however you want to listen is fine. But they miss the pauses. And the pauses are there for a reason. And I'm just a headyote. But the pauses are moments to let it sink in, or to let the emotion play out. They're there for a reason. And if we do something in double time, we're going to miss that. I've shared this story with some of you before. It's a fantastic story that I heard from a cousin. His name is Jonathan Wander. He lives in Pittsburgh. Wonderful person. And he told me that this is his favorite Dr. Twerski story. So you know, of course, that Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twerski was originally from Pittsburgh, lived in Pittsburgh and worked there for many, many years. And so he was once giving a lecture in Pittsburgh. And he was introduced. He stepped up to the microphone. And he was holding up a cassette player. And he pushed the play button on the cassette player. And there was some beautiful, soft classical music that was coming out. And he let it play for a few minutes. It's beautiful music, but everybody's wondering, why is he playing classical music when he's supposed to be speaking? And he commented and said, "Isn't this beautiful?" And then he pushed the fast forward button. And now all of a sudden the sound, it sped up so that all you could hear was gibberish. You couldn't really make out any music at all. And he pointed out that the music had lost its beauty and lost its meaning when it goes too fast. Now, he was talking within the context of prayer, which is so, so true. The prayer, the speed at which we go through our prayer, has a drastic impact on the significance of it. And if we're speaking to God, we should be speaking at a pace that is meaningful, that is beautiful, that holds meaning and conveys meaning. And if we're running through the davening, speaking so fast that if we were speaking in English to someone, they wouldn't even be able to understand us, then it loses its meaning. It loses its beauty. Dr. Twerski was talking about prayer, but of course, the same thing applies in every area of life. When we rush through life, trying to do everything, and to do everything ourselves, we miss the beauty and the joy and the meaning in life. And yes, I am fully aware that I am the first one that needs to hear this message. But Dr. Twerski reminds us, and the spaces in the Torah scroll remind us, to live the symphony of our lives at the proper speed in order to savor its beauty. Let it sink in. Don't rush to the next idea, to the next point, to the next thing that grabs our attention. Let's try to live our lives at the correct speed so that we're able to understand and appreciate and not just rush from one thing to another. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.